Good morning. This is the last Sunday in the month where we see rainbows every single day. Some have asked me why we have to acknowledge it every week, why we always talk about it in church this time of year, why people in the queer community should get a whole month where we get to publicly say that we're made differently and we're proud of it. And I thought I'd explained it well enough, but I'll offer one more reason. In this country and others all around the world, people in our LGBT community have been assaulted in every conceivable way. We have been beaten and killed for daring to exist, to be different, and whether we try to hide it or not, for being seen. Why is it that so many people are supportive of months which have been devoted to the celebration of the heritage of people of color, which, despite my visible lack of melanin, I am? Yet those very same supporters are uncomfortable with supporting the queer community, which, like my melanated DNA, I also am. Why is it still considered acceptable to publicly revile us, berate us, and rally against us? Why is hatred still allowed and accepted? Hatred of anyone. Nobody would feel proud of their racism in this day and age. They wouldn't dare admit their feelings. Yet those same people will publicly lambast queer people, both in person and in media, social or otherwise. And those same people will proudly show their face while they do it, usually in the name of their hateful, judgmental version of God. That is why we talk about it every Sunday in June. Hatred is never okay. Violence is never okay. But the only way they can be eradicated is by the loud and visible demonstration of love. And so we will continue to love everyone of every community right out loud for all the world to see. Hatred is fear. And fear cannot be quieted through avoidance or acceptance. Only love can do that. I ask once more for a moment of silence, a moment of quiet love, a moment of radical acceptance as we light the pride candle. May hatred never win. Thank you. Now, that was heavy. I know, I have strong feelings, but they're loving feelings. Now to the topic of today. Who noticed the title of today's talk? How many were maybe a little concerned? Yep, one. One for sure. Or maybe chagrined or baffled or amused. Overjoyed. I love it. I will tell you that when I announced my title choice to Mona, darling, she was very concerned about someone's knickers. If you know the song, you probably get why. And if you don't, or if you're listening to this in Spanish or in Mandarin for a later audience, if you want to understand more, um, the title of this song is called I Am the Walrus, and it's by the Beatles. And I cannot guarantee you that the lyrics will make any more sense to you, but at least you'll have some reference of what I'm talking about. And you will understand Mona's concern, of course. And no, the song itself isn't particularly relevant to the point of today's talk, but the opening lines are. I am he, as you are me, and we are all together. I think they were trying to find a way to express something very, very important. Today, this past Tuesday, not today, it was Tuesday, in ACIM, A Course in Miracles, in our discussion group, part of what we read really struck me. It struck me enough that I took a picture of the page so I wouldn't forget it. And it's a really accessible way of explaining the how of doing oneness. Because it's one thing to know that all is one, but it's entirely another to act like it. This is from the lesson on page 249 of the workbook, and I'm going to paraphrase it to maybe help it make sense a little bit, because I'll say this again. Reading A Course in Miracles will make you wonder if Jesus and Yoda got together and penned a book. Okay? So this says, forgiveness is the only thing that stands for truth in the illusions of the world. It sees their nothingness and looks straight through the thousand forms in which they may appear. It sees lies, but it is not deceived. It pays no attention to the screaming to distract you from the guilt they are carrying about their own errors. It looks on them with quiet eyes and merely says to them, my friend, what you think is not the truth. The strength of pardon is its honesty, which is so pure that it sees illusions as illusions, not truth. It is because of this that it becomes the great restorer of the simple truth. In overlooking what is not there, it opens the way to truth, which has been blocked by dreams of guilt. There's a very simple way to find the door to true forgiveness and reveal it to be open wide and welcome. When you feel like you are tempted to accuse someone of wrongdoing in any form, do not pay attention to what you think they did, but instead ask, would I accuse myself of doing this? This will reveal another way of choosing in terms that render choosing meaningful and keep your mind as free of guilt and pain as God intended it to be, and it is in truth. It is only lies that would condemn. In truth, innocence is all there is. I know that was a whole lot of words. And I know that ACIM is tough to understand, even when it's been tweaked a little bit. So let me explain it in light of things which have happened in the last few weeks to me and to Paul and Janice and to several other people I know recently. So we've had several of our beloved friends transition into their next spiritual journey this month, this last month. And so lots of folks are experiencing loss. And that can be very difficult, of course. And it's usually quite painful for us to reconcile the physical loss with the spiritual truth that the soul is eternal. And when that pain feels too big, people behave in ways which they hope will take some of the sting out of it. Oftentimes that shows up as anger or even rage. We seem to think that getting mad is healthier than letting our heart break. But when you've run out of things to blame others for, you're still left with that heartbreak, which you've still got to process. And now, on top of that, if you're really being honest with yourself, now you've also got some guilt for attacking people to avoid the pain. Most of us try to dodge that kind of honesty with ourselves. So if you're still not picking up what I'm laying down, let me introduce you to it. Let's say someone you love has passed. And instead of allowing yourself to hurt and leaning into your family and friends for support, you get angry and you attack them. It is my observation that when we attack people to avoid our heartache, we create stories to justify why we're attacking. And we're telling those stories to both ourselves and to others. And so you're angry and you're attacking, and they leave you because you're scary. And there you are, all alone, and the heartbreak hits because the anger has nobody to chase. But now you're angry that you're alone. Now you feel abandoned, so you build a wall, sometimes a permanent one, against those loved ones because they abandoned you. The perpetrator chooses to see themselves as a victim. Be with that for a minute, because it's really how that all works, isn't it? Now, from where you stand, it's clear you lost someone and then your loved ones left you. And anyone who would abandon you in your time of need isn't worth your love, right? But from where they stand, you abandoned them. You chased them out of your life by attacking them, and now they're scared you'll never forgive them. But there's only one thing which is true. All of you are hurting. What A Course in Miracles is saying is that we can choose in the instant that we begin to feel a bout of angry finger pointing start stirring inside of us, we can choose to ask, would I accuse myself of doing this? And then really think about the reality of the situation, not our narrative about it, right? To really think about the reality. That is one way to do oneness. The fact is, oneness is all there is. That is the truth. But it's a truth that most people struggle to do. It's too easy to anchor into the stuff happening and to our opinions about it all, and then to our choices, which stem from those opinions. There are a number of minister types I've met throughout my life who talk about love and teach peace and then step down from their pulpit and take off their collars and stoles and quickly start stirring pots and spreading stories. It is not the knowing that is the problem, it is the doing. Do you see? Thich Nhat Hanh said, enlightenment is when the wave realizes it is the ocean. And I realized last night that he chose the perfect metaphor for that statement, that truth. What do we call it when we hear waves? We say they are blank into the shore. Anybody? Crashing, there we go. Right. The waves erode rocks and reefs and they batter them into sand and they knock down castles and unsteady humans and other frolickers, and they roll and they tumble and they grab at whatever's on the beach. And you know how it feels when you're standing there and the water washes up over your feet and it recedes and it feels like your feet are being sucked down into the sand, right? And these waves, they just keep coming and coming and coming. But what if they stopped? I'm not asking about the science of it. That's not where we're going with this. Stay out of science. What I'm asking is what would happen if the wave saw clearly? Instead of looking at knocking down obstacles and seizing treasures, it sought to be the still ocean. The wave would not disappear, it would shift into ocean. And that is what I'm asking of you today. We've spent the last 4 weeks exploring oneness through stories and parables, and the wave is yet another. We've told 2 tales about a traveler who first sees a crowd of people who are all up in arms about a stranger who is sitting calmly by a fountain. And each person is crying out their version of events, and the traveler can't figure out the truth. So he goes to the stranger, the only one who's not pointing fingers. And what was the truth? The truth was he was just the guy sitting by the fountain. Nothing more. And in the second story, this same traveler, oddly, found himself in a village where everyone was given at birth a lens to see the world through. And as the years pass and people live their lives, their lens changes and thickens and warps and cracks and distorts in response to what has happened in each one's experience. And they see the world through these distortions, which makes them all see the same situation from a very, very different perspective. But then a child approaches the traveler and he asks the child, "Have you ever stopped looking through your lens and looked at it instead?" Those tales, they were the same traveler, and they were the same village and the same fountain. And the truth of both stories was a man who sat calmly by a beautiful fountain at the center of a very loud and very busy and very frightened village. What is the difference between a parable and a story? A story is a broad term for any narrative that recounts a series of events, primarily meant to entertain or explore the human experience. And it can be true or make believe or a mix of both. But a parable is a specific type of short fictional story that uses relatable everyday scenarios to teach a single profound moral, ethical, or spiritual lesson. And what is the lesson in those parables? The lesson is that we all see the world differently because we've all lived through different experiences. And those different experiences and the way that we've reacted to them, they shape how we view the world as a whole and how we view each new event. That's our lens. And we can see the world through it and act accordingly, or we can look at it and recognize why we see the world this way and then turn to love. The lesson is also that we can be the traveler. We can watch the ways that people are behaving, the emotions and the viewpoints, and we can seek the truth. What is the constant? The thing that is still amid all the noise and the movement and the narrative and the blame and the fear. Underneath it all is something which doesn't change. And that calm, unchanging thing, that thing which cannot be altered by accusation or judgment, that is the truth. Let me say that differently. If you can pick a side, you are not seeing the truth. And it is only when we stop picking sides that we effectively do oneness. We heard 2 other stories in these last 4 weeks. One from last week introduced you to a couple of icebergs. That was Clarence and Cordelia, and each looked like small chunks of ice floating on the ocean, but each had all kinds of stuff hidden underneath. And that stuff hidden underneath was way, way, way bigger than the stuff showing on top. And that big stuff caused them to bump into each other, to hurt each other without even knowing it. Because as far as they could see, they weren't even near each other, right? All of their hidden stuff, however, kept them at a great distance. But there was a cloud overhead who saw it all clearly. And as the cloud watched them argue and blame each other, neither of them realized that they were both to blame. The cloud started laughing, which got their attention, certainly. And when their anger turned on the cloud, who I have decided is named Gus, the cloud began laughing so hard at their silliness that it began to cry, finally revealing that it and they were all ocean. The stuff seen and the stuff unseen. It's the same stuff, and everything around it was part of it. Clarence and Cordelia felt separate, but the only thing separating those 2 blocks of ice was water. And what is ice? Water. And we had one final story. Actually, it was my favorite story of the 4, because although it was deeply true, it was also incredibly silly and kind of endearing even to me. And it asked the question, what if all we are is a bunch of goosebumps on the skin of God? And God, being extraordinarily creative, what if God decided to give each little bump names and attributes and stories of their very own? Might those little bumps begin to believe that they were separate little personalities with their collections and hobbies and phobias? You remember Lawrence, also known as Shirley Sheila? The minister by day, roller derby queen by night, who was terrified of earthworms and wooden clogs. They were the most random things I could think of in the moment. I think that may be the most powerful parable of all, because we all believe that we are separate people with our likes and our dislikes and beliefs and foibles. We believe that there are battles and teams and sides, and yet every single spiritual text, from the oldest Rig Veda to modern mystics, have revealed that all is one. Just one. You may be asking, how can that really be? And if that's true, does that mean I am nothing? Do I disappear? Am I real? It really is true. And you are not nothing. You are everything. You don't disappear, you expand. You stretch into the joy of being love full time. And in that expansion, suffering has nowhere left to hold on. That is what is meant in that prayer that we say together every week, on earth as it is in heaven. This morning, each of you received a little plastic prop ice cube. I didn't give it to you to remind you of Clarence and Cordelia. Did you lose your ice cube? Okay. I gave it to you because sometimes our hands need to understand what our minds are only beginning to see. This isn't a craft project, it's sacrament. Now, in a moment, if somebody runs and grabs Carrie, because I don't see him, there he is. All right. In a moment, Dee is going to begin to sing a song called Pieces of Dreams. It's also known as Little Boy Lost. And while she sings, I invite you to hold your little plastic ice cube and make a choice. And at some point, if you feel moved, act on it. Your choice is this. Will you choose to keep your cube in your hands unchanged and allow yourself to believe that you are separate so that you can choose sides and see the world through your lenses of judgment? So you can keep the other ice cubes far away and so that you can be a solitary little bump separated by belief? It's okay if that is your choice. Some aren't yet ready to see truth yet, and that is okay. What I'm offering you can feel very frightening. Sometimes we need time to make a choice so big. Or you can choose to enter knowingly into the doing of oneness. Will you stop crashing into the sand and turn around and see the ocean? Will you seek always to find the stillness beneath the movement, not choosing until you've revealed the real truth of innocence? Will you be one with everything? If you choose to stay separate and apart for now and keep your little cube in your hands, that's okay. Again, the choice is yours to make. And sometimes we do need time to make a choice that big. But if you choose the ocean, you may come to the front and place your cube into one of the jars of water that I have up here. And this water is very special, as Paul will reveal in a moment, because it's blue. Yes, but also it's holy water. Okay? It's very pretty blue holy water. When you are done, if you choose to put your cube in the water, and if you don't want to come up to do it, raise your hand and one of us can bring it out to you. You may take that home as a reminder of your covenant and keep it right where you can see it. Okay? Dee, turn it over to you, girl.
Little boy lost, in search of little boy found. You go a wandering, stumbling, tumbling down round. When will you find what's on the tip of your mind? Why are you blind? All you ever were, never were, really are, dearly are. Little boy fall in search of little boy true. Will you be ever done traveling, always unraveling? You running away could lead you farther astray. And for us fishing in streams for pieces of dreams, those pieces will never fit. What is the sense of it? Little boy lost. The words are running with streams. So with a far away yesterday, sail away pieces of long lost dreams.
later on, the water will be here. And the choice is always yours. Thank you all for being here today. And thank you for being willing to choose whatever the choice you made. Maybe those 4 young men from Liverpool accidentally stumbled into something profound. I am he, as you are he, as you are me, and we are all together. Maybe they weren't writing theology. Maybe they were describing what has always been true, that we are all one. Although I still have absolutely no idea what the walrus has to do with any of it. But that's for another day. All I have left to say is cuckoo cuckoo.